Medicine and pharmaceuticals have long symbolized trust, hope, and salvation from illness. Behind the facade of white coats, however, lie intricate mechanisms where patient needs often intersect with the interests of doctors and massive corporations. Not everything in this industry is transparent, and much remains hidden from public view. Chapter 1. The Secret History of Pharmaceuticals. Imagine the 19th century. City streets teeming with vendors hawking elixirs of youth, universal cures for every ailment, and even potions promising immortality. These miracle drugs often contained mercury, arsenic, or opium, produced without any regulations. Thousands perished from poisoning, yet pharmacists grew rich, while authorities turned a blind eye. Medicine was more commerce than science back then. One of the darkest scandals erupted with elixir sulfanilamide in 1937 in the U.S. Producers rushed a liquid form of the new antibiotic, using toxic diethylene glycol as a solvent, promising relief from infections. Over 100 people, mostly children, died agonizing deaths from kidney failure before the FDA halted sales, exposing the lack of safety testing and sparking the 1938 Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act. In Europe, the thalidomide tragedy of the late 1950s and early 1960s stands as a grim milestone. Marketed as a safe sedative and morning sickness remedy for pregnant women by Grunenthal, it caused over 10,000 babies to be born with severe birth defects, missing limbs, or malformed organs. The company concealed early warnings for years, selling in dozens of countries until whistleblowers and journalists forced recalls and stricter teratogenicity tests. Soviet pharmaceutical experiments added their own shadows during the mid-20th century. State-controlled labs tested hallucinogens and neuroleptics on psychiatric patients and prisoners without ethical oversight. Drugs like C-Max variants aimed at schizophrenia, but inflicted irreversible brain damage on thousands, with records still partially classified today, revealing ideology often trumped science. These events forged modern regulations, shifting from wild profiteering to oversight bodies like the FDA. Yet echoes persist. Rushed pandemic vaccines and under-tested generics remind us of haste's perils. Grasping this history empowers patients to demand transparency and avoid repeating past horrors. Chapter 2. Modern Drugs. Profit over Benefit. In the 21st century, pharmaceutical giants like Pfizer, Johnson & Johnson, and Novartis generate trillions in revenue, with global drug sales exceeding $1.5 trillion in 2023. Top companies invest heavily in R&D, reaching $276 billion across thousands of firms in 2021, yet marketing spends remain substantial, such as Pfizer's $3.7 billion on advertising that year, fueling blockbuster drugs with over $1 billion annual sales but often questionable efficacy and serious side effects. The U.S. opioid crisis exemplifies this tension. Purdue Pharma marketed OxyContin as non-addictive for chronic pain, downplaying risks in promotions to doctors. From 1999 to 2020, over 500,000 overdose deaths followed, leading to billions in settlements for misleading claims, while Merck's Vioxx triggered 60,000 heart attacks before its 2004 withdrawal after data suppression. COVID-19 accelerated emergency authorizations for vaccines and treatments like remdesivir. Pfizer and Moderna gained FDA approvals without full trial phases, promising rapid salvation, but later reports highlighted myocarditis in youth and blood clots. Russia's Sputnik V launched in record time, too, with partial secrecy around side effects sparking debates on speed versus safety. Companies skew clinical trials by publishing favorable results only, Up to 50% of studies go unreported per BMJ analyses, distorting drug benefits. Patients receive prophylactic statins or antidepressants with minimal gains for healthy individuals, but real risks like arrhythmias or suicidal ideation. This dynamic prioritizes commerce. New drugs cost 10 to 20 times more than generics, yet offer little superiority. Doctors face quotas pushing prescriptions, leaving patients to bear the health costs. Recognizing these patterns empowers informed choices. Chapter 3: Scandals and Real-Life Stories. The pharmaceutical industry brims with high-profile scandals where human lives became pawns in profit games. In 2019, Johnson & Johnson paid a $572 million fine for bribing Oklahoma doctors to prescribe opioids, artificially inflating demand for addictive painkillers despite internal knowledge of addiction risks that fueled an overdose epidemic. Real patient stories deliver gut-wrenching impact. Janssen's Risperdal from Johnson & Johnson targeted children with autism and elderly dementia patients for behavior control, but caused hundreds of boys to develop gynecomastia from hyperprolactinemia, alongside irreversible neurological damage. One U.S. teen sued after severe breast growth shattered his life, joining thousands in lawsuits that exposed off-label promotion. Journalists have repeatedly uncovered corruption. Pfizer faced a record $2.3 billion fine in 2009 for illegally pushing Bextra and others off-label, bribing doctors with kickbacks, sponsoring fake education, and conference perks. GlaxoSmithKline followed in 2012 with a $3 billion payout for Avandia promotions that hid heart risks while paying doctors for prescriptions. Regulatory failures compound the harm. Drugs banned in the U.S. or EU freely sell in developing nations. Sanofi and GSK's Zantac, ranitidine, carried carcinogen NDMA for 40 years before recall amid thousands of cancer links. Russia sees similar issues with unvetted imported generics lacking quality checks. These exposés highlight systemic rot, from data fudging to lax lobbying, in a crisis where patients suffer most. Yet growing awareness and lawsuits are reshaping the rules. Chapter 4: Doctors under pressure and patients at risk. Doctors serve as pivotal players in the pharmaceutical system, yet frequently find themselves squeezed between conscience, protocols, and external pressures. Pharma companies lobby prescriptions via educational seminars, sponsorships, and direct bonuses. U.S. physicians receive up to $12 billion annually in industry payments, like consulting fees, with 57% getting some form over the past decade, fostering conflicts that sway prescribing toward company drugs. Real stories underscore the dilemma. A European oncologist anonymously revealed clinic leadership demanding pricey immunotherapy over cheaper chemotherapy despite similar efficacy. One breast cancer patient achieved remission, but another died from toxicity. The doctor weighed job loss against risk. In Russia, therapists, under quotas, prescribe antibiotics for viral infections, worsening bacterial resistance. Standardization ignores rare diagnoses, too. A chronic fatigue patient endured years of depression antidepressants before an autoimmune condition surfaced. Protocols streamline work, but obscure complex cases needing tailored care, amplified by insurance and health ministry pressures favoring template treatments for stats. Financial efficiency reigns. Clinics opt for short-cycle drugs even if long-term alternatives prove superior. Doctors vent online about moral fatigue, selling health over saving lives. Informed patients demanding second opinions shift the power dynamic. Chapter 5: Marketing over Science. The pharmaceutical influence. Pharmaceutical companies dominate much of the healthcare ecosystem, shaping societal views on health and disease. Marketing budgets often surpass research spending, enabling firms to promote new drugs aggressively. This has led to a culture of medicalization, where everyday problems are increasingly framed as conditions needing pills. People readily accept diagnostic labels and turn to medication as a quick fix, rather than actively managing their well-being. Mass media, investors, and healthcare professionals are influenced by the industry's powerful marketing and financial clout. This creates anxiety around health, promoting a perception that normal human experiences require pharmacological intervention. Companies encourage people to see themselves as abnormal and in need of therapy, driving demand for medicines even when lifestyle changes or alternative treatments might be more appropriate. Despite criticism, pharmaceutical research aligns with many public health priorities. 43% of new drugs in the last decade target cancer, cardiovascular diseases, mental illnesses, and aging populations. Governments often rely on private sector innovation rather than direct control, believing this yields more effective results than nationalizing drug development. However, rising drug consumption poses risks. Unsafe usage, side effects, and dependency increase alongside over-medication. The pharmaceutical industry's dominance over scientific discourse raises concerns about transparency, pricing, and safety monitoring. Notably, several high-profile drug recalls and safety scandals have eroded public trust and spotlight regulatory gaps. Understanding this landscape helps patients critically evaluate medications, balancing benefits against risks and societal pressures. The industry's role is vital but complex, demanding vigilance to ensure health interests prevail over commercial ones. Chapter 6. What can patients do? Patients hold the power to shift dynamics through awareness and proactivity. Start with critical thinking. Verified drug information on independent sources like PubMed, Cochrane reviews, or regulators, FDA, EMA, Roszdravnadzor. Avoid blind trust in ads or experts with conflicts. Ask doctors for evidence of efficacy and alternatives. Always seek a second opinion for serious diagnoses or new drugs. Consulting independent specialists or non-pharma-sponsored clinics. Keep a symptom and side effect journal to track therapy responses, enabling timely adjustments and avoiding unnecessary prescriptions. Make informed choices by exploring generics, 80–90% cheaper than originals with equal efficacy if certified. Actively engage. Question: what risks? Non-drug options? Long-term studies? In the U.S., check open payments for pharma payments to doctors. Reform prospects inspire. All trials demands full clinical data publication. EU boosts pricing transparency, and Russia discusses doctor conflict registries. Platforms like Patients Like Me aggregate millions experiences, influencing regulations. These steps transform patients from passive consumers to system partners. Knowledge minimizes risks. Collective pressure reforms the industry. The pharmaceutical and medical system evolves under societal pressure, scandals, and scientific progress. Yet shadows from past and present remind us of the high cost of haste and commerce. From 19th century arsenic-laced elixirs to modern blockbusters with hidden side effects, history teaches that trust must pair with transparency and accountability. Today's trillion-dollar drug market saves millions, but creates victims through manipulations and conflicts of interest. Responsibility rests on all. Pharma firms must publish full trial data. Doctors prioritize patients over protocols and bonuses. Regulators enforce oversight without corruption. Empowered patients drive change via generics demand, second opinions, and independent research, curbing big pharma's sway. Global initiatives like all trials and conflict registries yield results. The future hinges on balance, innovation without rush, profit without deceit. Joint efforts, patients, doctors, society, build honest medicine where health trumps all. Awareness conquers darkness.